The wine bottle slipped slightly in Tanner Cole's hand as he caught sight of the woman in the scarlet dress poised, confident, and looking like she owned every inch of the ballroom. He didn't know her name, only that she didn't belong to the usual crowd. Not the fake laughing executives or the bored spouses glued to their phones. No, she was different, eyes sharp, like she saw everything, including him. Tanner straightened his bow tie even though it was crooked and he knew it. He had an hour left on his shift before he'd have to pick up his 8-year-old son, Tate, from his neighbor's place. He didn't have time to notice women like her. Not anymore. "Excuse me." Her voice cut smooth through the noise as she stepped up to the wine station. "Is this the Cabernet from the Keller estate?" He blinked. "Yeah, 1998, aged in French oak." Her eyes lifted to his, curious now. "Impressive, most servers just say red." "I used to be a sommelier," he said before he could stop himself. Before he shut his mouth. No one cared about a guy who used to have a future. She tilted her head. "Before what?" He poured her a glass, avoiding her gaze. "Doesn't matter." She took the glass, swirling it between her fingers. "You know, I admire people who don't let the past define them." Tanner gave a tight smile, then turned to help another guest, but not before sneaking one last glance at her. She was already walking away. He had no idea who she was. And absolutely no clue that she was the CEO of the company hosting the event. Lena Hart wasn't supposed to be at her own event unnoticed. But that's exactly how she liked it, slipping in under the radar, watching how her staff acted when they didn't know the boss was near. Tonight was a celebration of their latest acquisition, a mid-level tech firm that would double the company's valuation. But Lena didn't care about the numbers tonight. She cared about the man pouring wine like he was born to do it. She watched him from across the room. The way he stood, shoulders tense, jaw tight, eyes constantly scanning like he was always a step away from falling. But there was something in him that kept her watching. Something real. When she caught him glancing at his watch, then again 5 minutes later, she walked over. "You leaving early?" she asked, stepping close. He looked surprised. "End of shift." "Shame. I was hoping to ask your opinion on the Merlot." He hesitated, then leaned in slightly. "Skip it. Too acidic. Whoever picked it was trying too hard." She laughed, genuine. "You always this honest." "Only with people I'll never see again." That made her pause. "You don't think we'll see each other again?" "I don't know your name," he said simply. "Lena," she replied, offering her hand. "Tanner." He shook it, and something electric passed between them. Her grip was firm, her eyes too steady. He pulled his hand back first. By Monday, Tanner was back to his routine, working overtime shifts at the wine bar, fixing Tate's lunch for school, and fighting with the landlord over the broken heater in their tiny apartment in Queens. He didn't think about Lena again, until she walked into the wine bar on Thursday night. She wore a leather jacket over a white blouse, and she looked completely out of place among the regulars. But she walked straight up to the counter, pulled off her gloves, and sat down like she belonged. "You again," he said, caught somewhere between amused and stunned. She smiled. "I was in the neighborhood." He raised an eyebrow. "This neighborhood? Okay, I took a car." He chuckled. "What can I get you? Surprise me." He poured her a glass of a Spanish red, then leaned on the bar. "So what do you do, Lena?" "I run a company." Big enough." He didn't press. She didn't offer. But he noticed the way she didn't flinch when a man knocked over his drink and started yelling at the server. While everyone else stared, she calmly stood, walked over and diffused the situation like she owned the place. Later, when she was about to leave, she turned back to him. "You always work nights?" He nodded. "Gotta pick up my son from school at 3, work after he's asleep." She smiled. "How old?" 8. "Smart, talks too much." "I'd love to meet him." Tanner stared at her. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." She walked out without waiting for a response. By the following week, she was back again, and again, she never stayed long, just enough to talk, to laugh. To ask questions that felt too real, like, "When was the last time someone took care of you?" Or, "Do you ever just stop and breathe?" The way she looked at him made Tanner feel seen, and that scared the hell out of him. One night, after closing up, he found her waiting outside. "You shouldn't be in this neighborhood alone," he said, unlocking the door. "I'm not alone," she replied, stepping closer. There was snow falling around them, soft and slow. It clung to her hair, her lashes. "Why do you keep showing up?" he asked quietly. Because I like how you make me feel, he swallowed. You don't even know me. You keep saying that, she whispered. But I do. She leaned in slowly, giving him time to pull away. He didn't. The kiss was warm, grounding. Real, when they broke apart, he stared at her, breathless. I'm not used to people like you, he said. She smiled. Maybe it's time you were. Tanner didn't sleep that night. He kept thinking about the kiss, about the way she made him feel like he wasn't just surviving, he was living. He didn't know who she really was. But he was starting to fall for her anyway. Tanner pulled the door shut behind him, flicking off the bar's overhead lights with a sigh that seemed to settle into his bones. The cold air greeted him the moment he stepped outside, but he barely noticed. His thoughts were still tangled in the way Lena had looked at him like she saw right through the cracked pieces and didn't flinch. He didn't want to want her. Wanting someone like her came with consequences. Still, he found himself checking his phone's screen when it buzzed, hoping for a message that wasn't there. Not that she had his number. Not that she'd asked. When he got home, Tate was asleep on the pull-out couch, curled under two mismatched blankets. Tanner tucked the boy in tighter, brushing a hand over his forehead. He'd have to wake him early for school. Again. The heater still hadn't been fixed and the kitchen faucet was starting to drip. He looked around the apartment, cracked tile, flickering hallway light, a single photo of him and Tate from a summer 2 years ago, both sunburned and grinning beside a water fountain at the Bronx Zoo. It felt like another life. He didn't have room for distractions. Especially not ones who wore heels that could pay a month's rent. The next day, he took a different route home after dropping Tate off, walking the long way past the park. He needed air, space, something to remind him that his life, however small, was real. But his attempts to pull away from her unraveled quickly. That evening, right before the dinner rush, a man in a tailored navy coat entered the wine bar and asked for him by name. "You're Tanner." "She asked me to give you this." The man handed him a white envelope, then left before Tanner could ask who she was. Inside was a typed note, short and direct. "Friday, 7 o'clock. Don't be late." Beneath that, a business card. Lena Hart. Hart and Gray Industries, CEO. He stared at the card for a long time before folding the note back into the envelope. The name meant nothing to him, but the title explained everything. "She's out of her mind," he muttered. Still, when Friday came, he borrowed a jacket from his neighbor and showed up outside the address printed in embossed gold on the card. A marble-columned building in Midtown, with glass doors that whispered open at his approach. Inside, a woman in a black dress suit greeted him by name and led him through a hallway of abstract art and polished floors. He barely had time to feel out of place before they reached a private dining room, lit low and intimate. Lena stood at the head of the table, her hair swept back, no pretense on her face. "You came," she said. "You invited. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure either." She gestured to the chair across from hers. "Hungry? I'm not dressed for this. You're here." "That's enough." He sat, the cushion softer than anything he'd touched in months. A waiter appeared soundlessly to pour something that looked far too expensive to drink, but Tanner didn't touch it. "Why?" he asked. Her eyes didn't waver. "Because you're the most honest man I've met in years. And I wanted one night where I didn't have to pretend. I'm not a project." "I didn't say you were," he leaned back. "I'm not a charity case either. That's not what this is." "Then what is it?" She hesitated, then leaned forward, her elbows on the table. "You make me forget about the noise. The pressure, you look at me like I'm just a woman. That's all I see." Her smile was small. "Exactly." The food arrived, plates arranged like artwork, and they ate slowly, talking between bites. She asked about his favorite books, and he admitted he hadn't read anything that wasn't a bedtime story in years. She told him about a trip to Amsterdam where she got lost on purpose. He listened, genuinely curious. When dessert came, he didn't touch it. "You keep saying this isn't anything," he said quietly, "but you have a driver, a building with your name on it. I don't belong in your world. Maybe I don't belong in mine either." He looked at her, trying to find the catch, the game. But all he saw was a woman who looked as tired of pretending as he felt. "I can't give you anything," he said. "I didn't ask for anything. I've got a kid, he's my entire world. Then I'd like to meet him." He shook his head. "This isn't a fairy tale." "No," she agreed. "But it doesn't have to be a tragedy either." They left together, walking slowly down the quiet street. Her driver waited at the corner, but she didn't head for the car. Instead, she lingered beside him, close enough that he could feel the warmth of her coat brushing his arm. "I didn't mean to pull you into this," she said softly. "But I'm glad I did." He looked at her, really looked. The sharp lines of her face softened by the streetlight, the vulnerability she tried to hide barely shielded beneath all that polish. "I don't know what this is," he said. "Neither do I. But it's something." She didn't answer. She didn't have to. He watched her step into the car, the door closing behind her with a quiet finality. She didn't look back. He stood there for a long time after she was gone, hands in his pockets, heart thudding too loud. Something was happening. Whether he was ready or not. Tanner wasn't sure what he expected when he brought Lena to the school art fair, but it definitely wasn't her kneeling next to Tate, listening intently as he explained his papier-mâché volcano like it was a NASA launch. "You have to shake it just right," Tate said, eyes wide, "or it won't erupt the way it's supposed to. Want to try?" Lena glanced up at Tanner, then back at the volcano. "I'd be honored." Tanner folded his arms, watching her with a mix of disbelief and something warmer, more dangerous. She was wearing sneakers, real ones, not the kind people wore to look casual, and her hair was tied up in a way that made her look younger, almost carefree. "You're not terrible at this," he said as she carefully shook the cardboard base. "I've been known to follow instructions," she replied, concentrating. Tate gasped as red foam bubbled out of the top and spilled dramatically over the sides. "That was perfect. You're better than my teacher." "I'll take that as a compliment," she said, standing. Tanner waited until Tate ran off to show his project to someone else before turning to her. "Why did you really come today?" She didn't hesitate. "Because I wanted to see what the most important part of your life looks like." He blinked. "You don't run into a lot of honest people, do you? Not the kind who don't want anything from me, no." He rubbed the back of his neck, unsure what to do with that. "You fit in better than I expected. You thought I'd show up in a helicopter? I thought you wouldn't show up at all." She didn't answer, just looked around the gymnasium at the walls covered in finger paint masterpieces and glittered construction paper. "This," she said quietly, "feels more real than most of my world does." They stood in silence for a beat, then she added, "Do you mind if I take you both out for dinner? My treat." Tanner hesitated. "Tate's used to burgers and fries." "Then I hope he likes truffle ketchup." He laughed, really laughed, and Lena's expression shifted like she'd just won something she hadn't expected to want. They ate at a small Italian place on a corner Tanner had passed for years, but never dared walk into. The kind of spot with waiters who wore pressed shirts and menus without decimals. Tate devoured a bowl of fettuccine alfredo with zero regard for cost or etiquette, and Lena listened to him like he was presenting a thesis at Harvard. Tanner watched them from across the table, heart full and uneasy at the same time. He'd known this couldn't last long, not when she lived in a world that operated on private equity and international time zones. But when Lena leaned over and whispered something that made Tate burst into uncontrollable laughter, Tanner couldn't remember a single reason to stop it. After dinner, they walked back toward the subway. Lena didn't call a car. She didn't pull out her phone. She just walked, hands in her coat pockets, close enough that their arms brushed. "I liked today," she said after Tate ran ahead to chase the tail end of a pigeon. "Yeah, it reminded me of something I forgot." "What's that?" "That simple isn't the same as small." He looked at her. "You always talk like you're on the verge of writing a memoir," she smiled. "That's because I've lived the kind of life people think they want. And I'd trade a dozen corner offices for one more afternoon like this." He stopped walking. "Lena," she turned, expression soft. "You're going to tell me this is a bad idea," he nodded. "Because it is." "Then why haven't you walked away?" "I don't know," he said. "Maybe because I like who I am when I'm with you, but that doesn't mean this works." "Is that what you really think?" Her voice wasn't hurt. It was curious. "Challenging. I think we live in different worlds." "Maybe," she said. "But people build bridges all the time." Back at the apartment, Tate collapsed onto the couch, face first into a pillow. "I like her," he mumbled, voice muffled. Tanner ruffled his hair. "Yeah, me too." The next morning, Tanner found an envelope tucked beneath his apartment door. It wasn't from Lena. There was no name, Just a note typed on thick paper. You don't belong there, no signature, no context. He stared at it for a long time, a chill running down his spine that had nothing to do with the broken heater. Later that day, he showed up at Lena's office unannounced. The receptionist started to protest until Lena happened to walk into the lobby. "Tanner," she said, surprised. "Is something wrong?" He handed her the note. As she read it, her face hardened. "Where did you get this?" "Under my door this morning." She folded the paper slowly. "I'm going to handle it." "Handle it how?" "Don't worry, it won't happen again." He shook his head. "This isn't just about me. I know. I have a kid. I can't afford to get caught in someone else's game." She stepped closer. "This isn't a game to me. I need to know that for sure." "Then come with me," she said. "Right now, to where? My world." She didn't wait for his answer. She turned and walked toward the elevator, expecting him to follow. And somehow, without fully understanding why, he did. The rooftop was quiet except for the low hum of traffic below and the faint wind brushing past the glass barriers. Tanner stepped out of the elevator, his breath catching. He hadn't expected this. A long table was set beneath a canopy of soft golden lights, the skyline stretching out behind it like something pulled from a movie. There was no music, no crowd, just Lena, seated at the head of the table, a single place set beside her. He turned to her slowly. "You really don't do halfway, do you? I needed you to see it," she said, rising to meet him. "Not the press releases or the office towers, just this. You dragged me 30 floors up to show me a fancy dinner." "No," she said. "To show you that I'm not afraid to meet you in the middle." He looked at the table, then at her. "Middle's a stretch. You're on top of the world. I'd rather be here with you than anywhere else by myself." He didn't say anything for a moment, then he pulled out the chair and sat. They ate slowly, the kind of meal designed to be savored, but he barely tasted it. His mind was too full. The note, the way her hand had brushed against his earlier in the elevator, the way she hadn't asked him to change just to see. "You still haven't told me who left that message," he said finally. Her jaw tightened. "It came from someone on my board. Someone who thinks I should be with a man who arrives in a driverless car and already owns half of Manhattan. Sounds like a fun guy. He's threatened by you. Because I pour wine. Because I'm not pretending with you, and he knows that." Tanner leaned forward, elbows on the table. "This doesn't end well for you, Lena. You bring someone like me into your world and people start looking for cracks. Then let them. What if they dig too deep?" She hesitated, then pushed her plate aside. "There's something I haven't told you." He waited. "My mother was a waitress," she said. "She raised me on split shifts and borrowed uniforms. We lived in a one-bedroom until I was almost 17. He blinked. "You," she used to tell me, "don't marry a man for his money. Marry him if he remembers your coffee order and folds laundry without being asked." He gave a half laugh. "And now you're CEO of a company that trades in 7 countries. Which means I've spent most of my adult life proving I deserve to be in every room I walked into. And now," she met his eyes, "now I want to stop proving and start choosing." Tanner looked away toward the skyline. "And what if I can't give you anything but this version of me? Then I'll take this version." Silence stretched between them, not heavy but full. Then she stood and walked to the edge where the lights met the glass. "This is where I come when I can't breathe." He joined her. "And tonight, I can breathe." He didn't answer. Instead, he reached for her hand. She laced her fingers through his without hesitation. "I've been thinking about that night at the art fair," he said, "and I realized something." "What?" "You didn't show up just to meet Tate. You showed up to see what it felt like to be part of something real." She turned toward him. "And it felt like home." She touched his face gently. "Tanner, I don't want perfect, I just want honest." He leaned down, pressing his forehead against hers. "Then you've got it." After a long beat, she whispered, "Come with me tomorrow." "To where?" "There's a gala. Board members, donors, media. The kind of room where I'm expected to have someone on my arm who fits a certain image. And you're bringing me, if you say yes. You know they'll talk. I'm counting on it." He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. "You're serious. I don't want to keep us hidden because it makes other people comfortable." He thought of Tate, of the tiny apartment, of everything he'd spent the last few years building with nothing but grit and duct tape. Then he looked at her, this woman who could have anyone, who'd chosen him anyway, and nodded. "All right," he said. "Let's give them something to talk about." The next evening, Tanner stood in front of his cracked bathroom mirror, adjusting the collar of the suit Lena had sent earlier that day. It came in a box wrapped in black ribbon, no note, but he didn't need one. The fabric fit like it had been tailored for him, which, knowing her, it probably had. Tate sat on the edge of the tub, swinging his legs. "You look like a movie star," the boy said. Tanner grinned. "I feel like someone else. You're still my dad, right? Always." When he arrived at the gala, Lena was waiting just inside the entrance, dressed in a midnight blue gown that shimmered with every step. Her eyes found him instantly, and something shifted in her face, not surprise, not awe, but something quieter. Relief. "You clean up nice," she said as he approached. "I had help. Ready for this?" "Nope." She took his hand. "Good, neither am I." They walked in together and the room changed. Conversations paused, heads turned, but Lena didn't flinch. She held his hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. Halfway through the evening, one of the board members approached a man with silver hair and a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. "Lena," he said, "I assume this is your guest?" Tanner extended his hand before she could answer. "Tanner Cole. I pour wine, raise an exceptional kid, and apparently crash galas now." There was a pause. Then Lena said, "He's also the best decision I've made in a long time." The man blinked, taken aback, then nodded curtly and walked away. Tanner turned to her. "You really don't care what they think. I care what you think." Later, as the night wound down and the lights dimmed, they stepped out onto the balcony. The music faded behind them, replaced by the quiet hum of the city. "I used to think I had nothing left to give," Tanner said. "And now I think I just hadn't found the right person to give it to." She leaned in, her voice barely audible. "I love you." He looked at her, every wall crumbling. "I love you too." When she kissed him, it wasn't about grand gestures or billion-dollar deals. It was about two people who'd lived enough life to know what mattered and what didn't. They didn't need fireworks. The city lights were enough. And when they left together, hands clasped, hearts full, neither of them looked back. Tanner stood at the edge of the terrace at Lena's estate in the Hamptons, watching Tate help the groundskeeper plant herbs in raised garden beds along the outer wall. The boy was laughing, hands dirty, face lit with a kind of ease Tanner hadn't seen since before the divorce. The way he'd taken to this place, its open space, the freedom to run, was something Tanner hadn't expected. Tate had always been adaptable, but this was something else. This was peace. Lena stepped beside him, carrying 2 glasses of iced tea, her heels discarded somewhere inside. She handed one to him and leaned her shoulder lightly against his. "He's going to ask to move in," she said. Tanner lifted the glass to his lips. "He already has, twice." She let out a soft laugh. "I'm glad he feels safe." Tanner turned to her. "That's because of you." "It's because of you," she corrected. "He mirrors you." He looked back toward the garden. "I've been trying to figure out what this is now, the 3 of us. It's not just visits and weekends anymore." "It's not temporary," she said simply. He studied her. "You're sure?" She nodded. "I had a meeting this morning with the board. I told them I'm restructuring." His brow furrowed. "Restructuring what? My time, my focus. I've spent years building a company that can run without me. It's time I let it. And they're okay with that." There was pushback. There always is, but I reminded them I own 51%. They adjusted quickly. He blinked. "You're serious?" "I'm not going to spend my life in boardrooms arguing over metrics when I could be here with you." With him? He set down his tea, heart pounding. "Lena, I need to say something." She faced him fully. "I've been waiting for the other shoe to drop, for something to go wrong. I kept thinking this was all too much, too fast. But the truth is, nothing's made more sense to me than you." He paused, voice catching. "I don't care about the money, the houses, any of it. I care about the way you look at me when I don't know what to say, the way you showed up for my son without hesitation. You didn't just fall into our lives, you stepped in like you were meant to be here." Her eyes glistened. "I was meant to be here." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I wanted to wait. I thought maybe we needed more time." "But time isn't what makes something real." She stared at the box, unmoving. "I don't have anything flashy planned," he said. "No orchestra, no fireworks, just this, just us." He opened it to reveal a simple platinum band with a single diamond, modest but elegant. "Marry me?" Lena's breath left her in a rush. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her with every ounce of certainty he'd fought against for months. When they pulled apart, Tate was bounding toward them, hands still covered in soil. "Did I miss something?" he asked, eyes darting between them. Tanner crouched to his level. "We're getting married." Tate blinked, then grinned. "Does that mean I get to live here forever?" Lena knelt beside them. "If that's what you want." "I think we should get a dog," Tate said. Tanner laughed. "Let's survive the wedding first." The ceremony was held 3 weeks later on the same terrace, beneath a canopy of gold and ivory flowers. Lena wore a sleek satin gown, hair down, no veil. Her vows were short, but every word landed deep. "I used to think success meant being alone at the top," she began. "Now I know it means having someone who'll hold you when the world gets heavy. You held me, Tanner, and I will spend the rest of my life holding you." Tanner's voice cracked when he said his vows. "You made me believe in more. In family, in second chances. I didn't know how much I was missing until I met you." When they kissed, the applause from their small circle of friends and family echoed across the lawn, but they didn't hear it. They only heard each other. Afterward, they danced barefoot beneath string lights while Tate ran around with a camera, snapping blurry photos and insisting on a group shot every 10 minutes. Later that night, after the last guest had left and the house had gone quiet, Lena sat curled against Tanner on the balcony couch, her head on his chest. "Do you ever think about how fast this all happened?" she murmured. "I used to," he said, "but now I think some things don't need time. They just need truth." She smiled, eyes closed. "We built something real, didn't we?" "We did." She reached for his hand, their fingers twining automatically. "I don't want to wake up tomorrow and have it feel like a dream." "It won't," he whispered. "It's ours now." Months later, their mornings began with Tate yelling for pancakes, and their nights ended with quiet laughter and the occasional fight over which movie to watch. Tanner opened a boutique wine shop in the village, backed quietly by Lena but run entirely by his vision. Lena stepped back from day-to-day operations, focusing instead on a philanthropic foundation she'd always dreamed of launching, one that funded scholarships for single parents returning to school. They didn't live in the penthouse. They sold it. Too high up, too far removed. Instead, they bought a brownstone in Brooklyn, roomy, warm, a backyard for Tate, and eventually for the golden retriever puppy they named Maple. They didn't need luxury to feel rich, they had each other. And that was more than enough.